Talk Ava. Learn English with confidence.
Today, we have a surprisingly tricky English topic. Two words that sound identical when you hear them, but they mean completely different things. We're talking about compliment and compliment.
This is one of those topics that can confuse even advanced learners, because when you hear them in conversation, they sound the same. If nobody shows you the spelling, you have to understand the meaning from the context.
And I have to admit something. For a long time, I thought they were basically the same word.
You are not alone. A lot of learners assume that too.
I think my confusion started because somebody once told me, "Your shoes complement your outfit." I heard it and thought they meant the shoes were giving the outfit a compliment.
That mental image is honestly quite funny. A pair of shoes looking at a jacket and saying, "You look fantastic today."
See, that was basically what my brain imagined.
The funny part is that understanding the difference becomes very easy once you connect each word to a different idea.
That sounds encouraging because right now they still feel very similar to me. Now I'm curious, where should we start?
Let's start with compliment, the one with the letter I.
The praise word.
Yes, a compliment is something nice you say to someone.
So if I tell somebody, "Your presentation was excellent," that's a compliment.
Correct. And if someone says, "I love your haircut," that is also a compliment.
That feels straightforward.
Now let's think about everyday life. Have you received any compliments recently?
Actually, yes. Last week I wore a new jacket, and a coworker said, "That color looks good on you."
That's a perfect example of a compliment.
And it did make me feel good for the rest of the day.
That's another clue. Compliments usually affect people emotionally because they involve praise, appreciation, or admiration.
So compliments are connected to feelings.
Very often, yes.
Okay, I think I understand that side. Then where does compliment fit into all this?
Compliment with an E is completely different. It's about things working well together.
Not people praising each other.
Not necessarily. Imagine coffee and chocolate cake.
That already sounds like a good combination.
Many people would say the coffee complements the cake.
Meaning they make each other better.
That's right.
Interesting. So nobody is praising anybody.
No praise involved.
That makes the difference much clearer already.
Think about clothing too. A blue tie might complement a gray suit.
Because the colors work well together.
Yes, the tie improves the overall look.
I think learners often hear the word compliment in fashion conversations.
That's one of the most common places. Before we get into it, if you enjoy learning English through real conversations, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the Talk Ava.
Now I understand why my shoes were not complimenting my outfit.
Thankfully, they were not speaking.
That would create a very different podcast episode.
It definitely would.
So one word is connected to praise. The other is connected to matching or improving something.
That's a very simple way to remember it.
I like that. It feels easier than memorizing dictionary definitions.
Because your brain remembers ideas better than definitions.
I'm noticing something interesting, though. Compliment feels more social.
That's a great observation.
You usually compliment a person.
Very often, yes.
And compliment feels more about relationships between things.
Exactly. A compliment makes someone feel good. A compliment makes something work better.
That sentence really helps.
Now I want to test myself with some examples.
Go ahead.
If I tell my friend, "You did an amazing job today,"
That's a compliment.
correct. If I say, "Your skills complement the team," that's compliment. Also correct. Interesting. The second sentence isn't really about praise. It's about fit and balance. That's the key idea. I think many learners get confused because both words create positive meanings. That's true. Both words are positive, but they are positive in different ways. A compliment creates confidence, and a compliment creates harmony. That sounds much easier to remember. And you'll hear compliment used outside fashion too. People talk about personalities complementing each other. What does that mean? Imagine one person is organized and another person is creative. Together, they work very well as a team, so their strengths complement each other. Exactly. That actually sounds like something you hear in workplaces all the time. You do. Teams, relationships, partnerships, business projects, the word appears everywhere. And now I'm realizing that compliment and complement live in completely different worlds. One changes how someone feels. The other changes how things fit together. That's a wonderful summary. The more we talk about this, the more I realize these words show up in places I never noticed before. That usually happens when you learn the difference between two similar words. Suddenly, you start hearing them everywhere. I was actually thinking about compliments recently because I attended a wedding a few weeks ago. That sounds like a place where compliments appear every 5 minutes. Pretty much. People were complimenting the bride, complimenting the decorations, complimenting the food, complimenting the music. That is a very compliment-heavy environment. And now I understand why nobody was saying compliment in those situations. Because people were expressing praise. Right. Someone said, "You look amazing today." That's clearly a compliment. Yes. The goal is to make someone feel appreciated. I think that's the emotional side of the word. Compliments affect confidence. That's a great way to think about it. And honestly, everybody likes receiving a good compliment. Most people do. A sincere compliment can stay in someone's memory for a long time. I still remember a teacher complimenting my writing years ago. See? That is a perfect example. The funny thing is that it only took a few seconds to say, but I remembered it for years. Because compliments often affect emotions much more than people realize. Now let's move to compliment. That feels like a completely different world. It really is. Because compliment isn't about making people feel appreciated. It's about balance, harmony, and things improving each other. I heard somebody say recently, their personalities complement each other. That's a very common expression. What I found interesting was that nobody was praising either person. Exactly. The sentence isn't about admiration, it's about compatibility. One person was outgoing and energetic, and the other person was calm and thoughtful. Yes, together they worked well as a pair, so their personalities complemented each other. That suddenly feels very natural now, because compliment often appears when people describe relationships between things.
Relationships between people, skills, colors, food, even business teams.
You are starting to notice the pattern.
One changes feelings, one changes harmony.
That is probably one of the best summaries we've had today.
I think learners often focus on definitions when they should focus on pictures.
What do you mean?
When I hear compliment, I imagine one person speaking to another person.
That makes sense.
When I hear compliment, I imagine two things fitting together.
That visual difference is very helpful.
Because suddenly the meanings don't feel similar anymore.
And that's how native speakers often process language. They connect words to situations and images.
Not just dictionary definitions.
Exactly.
Okay, I want to test myself again.
Let's do it.
If I say, "Your presentation was excellent," that's a compliment.
Correct.
If I say, "Your presentation complements the report," that's compliment.
Also correct.
Because the presentation and report work well together.
Yes, one strengthens the other.
Interesting. The emotional feeling is completely different.
And that emotional difference helps native speakers understand the meaning immediately.
I think we're ready for some dangerous examples now.
Dangerous examples usually become the most memorable.
Good. Let's make things confusing.
Go ahead.
What about this sentence? They complement each other.
That works.
And what about they complement each other?
That also works.
See? This is where learners start panicking.
And for good reason, because both sentences are grammatically correct.
But they mean different things.
Completely different things.
Let's break it down.
If two people compliment each other, they say nice things to each other.
So they exchange praise.
Exactly.
Maybe one says, "You look great today."
And the other says, "Thank you. I like your jacket too."
That is complimenting.
Yes.
Now let's change one letter.
And everything changes.
If two people complement each other, their qualities fit together well.
Correct.
Maybe one person is creative and the other is organized.
Or one person is outgoing and the other is thoughtful.
Now the focus isn't praise.
It's compatibility.
That is honestly fascinating.
Because the pronunciation stays the same, while the entire mental picture changes.
The sound stays the same. The story changes completely.
That is the heart of this topic.
I can imagine a learner hearing those sentences and assuming they mean the same thing.
Which is why context becomes so important.
I think context is doing all the hard work here.
It really is. Let's try another example. Go for it. The wine complements the meal. That sounds natural, because wine and food can improve each other. Right. Now imagine saying, the wine complements the meal. Then the wine is suddenly talking to the food and saying, "You look wonderful this evening," which creates a very unusual restaurant experience. That example might stay in my brain forever. Sometimes funny examples are the easiest to remember. I think the biggest lesson so far is that compliment belongs in social interaction. Very often, yes. And compliment belongs in descriptions of balance and harmony. That is a very strong way to think about it. The amazing thing is that one letter changes everything. And once you see the difference clearly, these words become much easier to use naturally. I think I finally understand the difference, but I have a feeling I'm still going to make mistakes. That is probably true. Thank you for your honesty. The good news is that some mistakes become memorable very quickly. That sounds suspicious. Because once you hear how strange a sentence sounds, your brain usually remembers it forever. Do you have an example? Actually, yes. A learner once looked at someone's outfit and said, "Your shoes complement your jacket." That sounds reasonable at first, for about 3 seconds. And then you realize the shoes are somehow speaking. Exactly. The sentence accidentally suggests the shoes are praising the jacket. Now I'm imagining a pair of shoes saying, "That jacket is an excellent fashion choice," which would be a very talented pair of shoes. This is why I love language. One tiny spelling change creates an entirely different reality, and this is one of the easiest ways to remember the difference. Objects usually complement things, because objects cannot give compliments, at least not yet. Technology is advancing quickly. We should not rule anything out. Fair point. So if I say, "Those curtains complement the room," that sounds natural, very natural, because the curtains improve the overall appearance. Correct. And if I say, "Those curtains complement the room," it suddenly sounds strange, because the curtains are now expressing admiration toward the furniture. I think this might be the most useful memory trick we've discussed today. Funny examples often stay with people longer. I noticed another pattern too. Compliment usually happens during interaction. Interesting observation. Somebody says something, yes. Or writes something, yes. There's communication involved. That is true most of the time. Meanwhile, compliment often appears in descriptions. Very often.
People describe relationships between colors, skills, foods, personalities, products, and ideas.
You are seeing the bigger picture now.
It feels like compliment belongs to conversations.
And compliment belongs to connections.
That might be my favorite summary so far.
Because it captures the feeling behind both words.
Let's test that idea.
Go ahead.
A manager tells an employee, "You handled that project really well."
Compliment.
A manager says, "Your analytical skills complement Sarah's creativity."
Compliment.
One sentence praises a person.
The other describes balance between strengths.
Interesting. The second sentence almost sounds strategic.
Because compliment often appears when people discuss how things work together.
That makes sense.
Think about sports teams.
Good example.
One player might be fast. Another player might be strong.
Different strengths.
And those strengths complement each other.
Nobody is praising anybody there.
Not necessarily. The focus is on effectiveness.
I think learners sometimes try to memorize vocabulary without noticing patterns like this.
And those patterns are often what native speakers notice first.
The more we talk about it, the more compliment feels connected to teamwork.
That is a common area where the word appears.
Teams, relationships, partnerships, products.
Even food combinations.
Now I want lunch.
That happens surprisingly often during podcast recordings.
You mentioned food earlier, and now I keep thinking about restaurant menus.
Restaurants actually provide good examples.
Like what?
You might hear someone say, "The sauce complements the steak,"
That sounds natural.
because the sauce improves the overall experience.
The steak is not receiving praise.
No praise involved.
That distinction really matters.
It does.
I think many learners hear these words and focus entirely on pronunciation because they sound identical.
Which is understandable.
But the real difference appears in the situation.
Context does almost all the work.
I feel like context is carrying this lesson on its back.
It certainly deserves some appreciation.
Maybe we should compliment context.
That would be a compliment.
And compliment complements language learning.
Now you're showing off. Maybe a little. The funny thing is that you used both words correctly there.
That might be the first sign of progress.
I think it is.
Okay, let's move into everyday situations because that's where people will actually use these words.
Good idea.
Imagine somebody posts a photo online.
Very common situation.
People leave comments saying things like, "You look great," or "That's a wonderful picture,"
Those are compliments.
because they're expressing praise.
Correct.
Now, imagine someone says, "The background complements the photo,"
That is compliment.
because the background improves the overall image.
Exactly.
The more examples we use, the easier the distinction becomes.
Because your brain is starting to connect each word to a specific type of situation.
Compliment belongs to appreciation.
Yes.
Compliment belongs to harmony.
Yes,
Compliment often involves people.
very often.
Compliment often involves relationships between things.
That is another strong pattern.
I honestly think learners should focus less on spelling and more on the story happening around the word.
That is excellent advice because context usually reveals the meaning immediately.
And once you understand the story, the spelling becomes easier to remember too.
That's usually how natural language learning works.
I think something interesting happened during this conversation.
What did you notice?
At the beginning, compliment and compliment felt like a spelling problem.
And now?
Now they feel like two completely different ideas.
That is usually the moment when a word pair finally starts making sense.
Because I stopped thinking about letters and started thinking about situations.
Which is how native speakers usually understand vocabulary.
I think that's one of the biggest lessons from today's episode.
I agree.
Learners often ask, how do I remember the difference between these words?
And many people immediately start searching for memory tricks.
Which can help.
Sometimes.
But what helped me today was creating two completely different pictures in my mind.
Tell me the pictures.
When I hear compliment, I imagine one person speaking to another person.
That makes sense.
Somebody is expressing appreciation, admiration, encouragement, or praise.
That image fits perfectly.
When I hear compliment, I imagine two things standing side by side and making each other better.
That is a very strong mental image.
One word is about appreciation.
And the other is about connection.
That sentence feels surprisingly powerful.
Because it captures the heart of the difference.
I think learners sometimes underestimate how much English depends on images and associations.
Very true.
They try to memorize definitions mechanically.
While native speakers often connect words to experiences.
That explains why some vocabulary feels difficult even when the definition seems simple.
Because language is not only information, it is also imagery, context, and relationships.
I remember when I first started learning English, I wanted every word to have a direct translation.
Most learners start there.
But over time, I realized some words don't really live inside translations.
They live inside situations.
That is probably one of the most useful language learning lessons I've discovered.
And this topic demonstrates it perfectly.
Because if someone simply gives you a dictionary definition of compliment, it might still feel confusing.
But if someone shows you a tie complimenting a suit, or two personalities complimenting each other, suddenly it becomes clear.
The meaning becomes visual.
And memorable.
I think that's why the shoe example will stay in my head forever.
The talking shoes?
The talking shoes.
That example has become surprisingly important during this episode.
Because every time I accidentally think of compliment instead of compliment, I immediately imagine shoes giving fashion advice.
Which helps you correct the mistake.
Exactly.
Sometimes strange examples are the most effective teachers.
I think learners should create more memorable examples for themselves.
That can be very useful.
Because language becomes easier when it feels personal.
I completely agree.
Another thing I noticed today is that compliment feels more emotional than I realized.
How so?
A compliment can affect someone's confidence, mood, or self-image.
That is true.
Sometimes a compliment lasts in someone's memory for years.
We've both shared examples like that today.
Which means compliment isn't just about saying something nice.
It can be much more meaningful than that.
Meanwhile, compliment feels more analytical.
Interesting observation.
Not cold or emotionless.
But more focused on balance and effectiveness.
Exactly. It describes how things fit together successfully.
And that idea appears everywhere in life.
Relationships.
Teams.
Design.
Fashion.
Food.
Even personality traits.
The more examples we discuss, the more common this word becomes.
Because once you understand it, you start noticing it everywhere.
I think that happens with many English words.
It does.
One day, a word feels unfamiliar.
Then suddenly you hear it 3 times a day.
Language has a strange way of doing that.
It really does.
If somebody asked me right now for the simplest possible explanation, I think I could finally give one.
Let's hear it.
A compliment makes people feel good.
Good start.
A compliment makes things work well together.
That is wonderfully clear.
And surprisingly easy.
The best explanations usually are.
I think learners often expect complicated answers.
When sometimes the simplest answer is the most useful.
This conversation has definitely changed how I hear these words.
That is always a good sign.
At the beginning, they sounded identical.
And now?
Now they create completely different pictures in my mind.
Which means you've moved beyond spelling and into meaning.
I think that's where real learning happens.
I agree.
And honestly, I enjoy these topics because they reveal something bigger about English.
What do they reveal?
That language is often less about memorizing words and more about understanding relationships between ideas.
That is a great observation to end on.
Because compliment and compliment aren't really a spelling lesson anymore.
They're a reminder that context shapes meaning.
And that one small letter can completely change the story behind a word.
It certainly can.
And if you enjoyed today's discussion, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the Talk Ava. Some English words sound identical, but they create completely different pictures in your mind. The more you notice those pictures, the more natural English begins to feel.